hit that bell and give this video a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. I am trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of this year, and I know you're like, Melissa, what the hell? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, guys. Let me take my glasses off today, so y'all won't see the glare in my glasses. So let's go ahead and get started. So we found who killed your sister 40 years later. A cold case solved. It took 48 to solve a case of this beautiful sister, mother, daughter, but it's solved, and I hope that now she's resting in peace after all those years. It should have been an origin near airing a trip to mid-luxury drugstore to buy a hair dryer. Wendy Jo Halison drove her prize green Thunderbird down Fairfax Avenue on Sunday afternoon in 1968, stopping at the thrift on the corner of Wilshire Boulevard after shopping. The 22-year-old student was filling up her car at gas station down the street. But Halison would never return home to her family. Her body was found the next morning, stuffed in the trunk of her car, a few blocks from where she was last seen alive. The mystery of her murder lingered for nearly half a century, outlasting several detectives as potential suspects. New forensic techniques sometimes reveal tantalizing clues, but investigators failed to define her killer. Halison's family was haunted by her death. Her parents died without learning who killed their daughter. Her sister wondered if she would too. When an unexpected break came 48 years later, the revolution were chilling. The man who strangled Halison and had already been convicted of murdering 2 other women and was suspected of killing more. Halison grew up in Los Angeles with her parents and older sister Linda, the daughter of a real estate salesman and a bookkeeper turned homemaker. The girls painted and played the piano. Halison was gracious with a big smile that still beams through the black and white photos hanging on her sister's wall. She took classes at San Fernando Valley State College, known as Cal State Northridge today, and lived in a mid-city home with her parents and her beloved poodle, Perry. She had everything going for her, recalled girl Gail Court, who was then married to Halison's sister. Halison called her sister that Sunday about a newspaper ad for a hair dryer on sale, a thrift, and asked if she wanted to go and one. Linda called Teresa, told her sister no. She had 2 young sons at home and wanted to spend the day with her family. Decades later, her eyes welled with tears as she recalled the conversation. This still haunts me, she said. When Wendy didn't return her later that day, her family began to worry. It was unusual for her not to check in. Wendy's mother called police that night to report her missing, but she was told they couldn't launch a missing persons case so quickly rather than wait for the family began to search on their own. Gil was a private investigator and refilled friends to help. He also hired a helicopter to scour the neighborhood from above. Less than an hour after the search began the next morning, Halison's boyfriend spotted her Thunderbird parked on Fairfax Avenue. Court found her keys on the floor of the back seat and went to open the trunk. Wendy's body was inside. It was the worst day of my life, Court, now 77, recalled. Investigator later determined Wendy was sexually assaulted, then strangled, said Richard, an LAPD detective now handling her case. Her fingernails were broken. Detectives think she tried to fight her attacker. The rope used to kill her was found at the scene. She still wore her jewelry and watch, causing detectives to rule out robbery as the motive. The only thing missing was the hair dryer. Trier was waiting at her parents' house when her husband walked in. It was the first time Trier had seen him cry, she called. We found her, Cora told them. She's gone. Police quickly zeroed in one foreman who knew Wendy well, her boyfriend and her ex-boyfriend, her brother-in-law and another friend. They guessed that she may have known her attacker, someone who knew she was shopping alone. The boyfriend, however, especially stood out to investigators. Began Stone said the one who had spotted Halison's car from the helicopter had seemingly picked the needle out of a haystack. Even the pilot wondered how he was able to see the car from where they were flying. He also felt the lie detector test raising more eyebrows, which if y'all are into true crime, and the lie detectors really don't count. Cora said she took a polygraph test right away so police could eliminate him as a suspect and move on with their search. He said he understood why detectives intentionally focused on the men close to Wendy. Although it was somebody that knew her, she says strangling somebody is very personal. But the weeks turned into months, and the months into years, without much progress. Detectives were able to glean some clues of a white man was seen near Wendy's at the drugstore and again in the gas station, but the case eliminated stall. Harry Klein Jr., a criminalist for the LAPD, got involved 3 decades later, where Story's detective Frank Bolin asked him to look at evidence collected in Wendy's case. In 1998, DNA analysis was in the infancy, and the LAPD had been working with the forensic clinic for only about 4 years, Klein said. But when a colleague found semen on Wendy's Capri pants underwear, Klein said that they decided to analyze it in hopes that the DNA would yield a fresh lead. Sure enough, he said, they found a sample from the suspect, although it was somebody that knew her. Investigator went to work drawing blood from each of the 4 men they had originally questioned in connection with Wendy's death. They eliminated all 4 suspects. Now you can move on, Benson said. It closed one door but opens up others to look at. But the investigators stalled yet again. The DNA samples were too managed to test again. Collections in the states and national database. It just wasn't going anywhere, Kellen said. He recalled talking to Bolin about the case late one night as the detective smoked a cigarette outside Tom Burton's, a bar just down the street from where Wendy's body was found. This case will be solved long after I'm gone, Bolin told Kellen. Wendy's death and not knowing who was responsible devastated her family. Her parents left her room intact for years. Cordo Vade driving down the Fairfax and felt sick when he saw thunderbirds in the road. Wendy's father, Lee DeClain, stopped by their neighborhood police station asking if there were any news leads. He offered reward looking for anyone who may have seen Wendy that day. The family thought of the milestones Wendy was robbed of: a wedding, birthdays, watching her nephews grow up, having children of her own. Wendy's death seemed to hit her father the hardest. She was born on his birthday, and her absence hung over every celebration. If something happens to me, I want you to promise don't forget your sister, he once told Torquino, and you do what you think you can do to find out who did this. By 2016, 3 LAPD investigators had been working in Wendy's case for years. Kayleen, the criminalist, Ben Stone, the cold case detective, and Peter Barman, a former head deputy district attorney who now helps detectives look over old cases for new clues. Beston was assigned to the Department of Robbery Homicide Division, a group of detectives who handle some of the toughest cases in the city. He was among the original 8 detectives assigned to the cold case unit when he was created in 2001, and the only one of those who is still working there. Benston is of the classic detective mold, with a deep voice, sharp eye for details and determination to find answer. He doesn't like the word closure, he said, because he's not sure families of those killed were truly gaining it. As his desk inside the division, the thick binders lying in the cupboard behind him, Wendy's files was what the detectives called the murder book, are neatly arranged on his desk. The investigation frankly flipped through those files, looking for those clues that could lead them to Wendy's killer. Last summer, they asked Ken to run the DNA again, hoping improving technology would finally help them define enough marks to upload the samples in the state of system. When Kalen got the result, he said he immediately sent Bershing a text message. "Are you sitting down?" he wrote. Edward Dean Richard's criminal record thrashed to his childhood, escalating from burglaries and thefts to more violent crimes shattered across the country. He was a drifter working odd jobs as he moved from the state to state. In 1960, he was convicted of attempted robbery and kidnapping in San Diego and spent 8 years behind bars. He was paroled in April of 1968, 5 months before Wendy was killed. Richard landed in Ohio prison in 1981 after being convicted of killing 21-year-old John Anna Bergner in Melton County, a steel and coal community on the state's eastern border. Richard was also convicted of kidnapping 2 girls across the river in West Virginia. Tom Marker, now 76, was Belmont County Sheriff for 2 decades before that when he was an investigator for the prosecutor office. He spent more than 3 years looking for Richardson, who skipped town after Bergern's body was found. McCord eventually used the phone bill tossed in the trash to attract Richardson to a trail park in Nassau, Aries, where he was arrested for Berman's murder. On the flight back to Ohio, they retained lawmen said Richardson bragged about killing another woman, wrapping her body in a blanket and tossing it over a cliff. He was almost boasting about what he had done and what he had gotten away with. About 20 years later, authorities used DNA to link and still imprisonment Richardson to cold case killing in Orange County. Richardson was flown to California to face trial, where he pleaded guilty to raping and strangling Merrill Jane Hires in 1972. The 23-year-old battered body was wrapped in cloth and jumped down in a bank not far from the Yorba County Club, just as he told McCord on the plane. Richardson, then 70 and suffering from emphysema, was sentenced in 2006 to life in prison, all but ensuring he would die behind bars. He was a little sneakily coward, McCord said. The only people that I could think of that I had dealt with the were of more sickness nature were pedophilias. To me, he fit right in the same category, preparing 1 week and defenseless, he added. By the time the investigation in LA used the DNA to identify Richardson as the man who strangled Wendy Jo, the convicted killer had been dead about 4 years. Besson cruised at the news. Even alive in prison is better than dead, the detective laughed, because then I get to go to him and say, guess what, I'm going to put another charge on you. Because Richardson was dead, investigators couldn't interview him in prison, or more importantly, take the sample of his DNA to confirm their intentional hit. Instead, they matched a blood sample defined at Richardson in the Orange County investigator to the DNA from Halison case. They also combined through his background to see if his habits matched those of Halison's killer, as they did. Benson said they noticed disturbing similarities. Halison, Hires, and Berman were all young, attractive brunettes who were alone when they were abducted. Each was assaulted and strangled. These scars were abundant. Benson thinks Richardson was an opportunity strike targeting women who were about to get in their cars. The detectives believe that he used some type of weapon to force him to slid into a back passenger seat. There are gaps on his rape sheet and worry Benson and others are killed like Richardson. Our serial killer doesn't typically take a break, they said. This guy didn't stop at 1 or 2 or 3 versions. There's no chance in hell. There was another woman, another pretty 22-year-old, killed a year after Wendy, Margie Sushi, sorry if I said that wrong. Beaten and strangled body was found in Buckman, but her car was found in Los Angeles, in the parking lot of the same thrift drugstore where Wendy stopped. It's too much of coincidence for Benston and Berman. They think there's a chance Richards killed Sushi too. The problem, they said, that the evidence from Sushi in 1969 kill was lost and there's no DNA to test. When Benston was confident Richardson was the man who killed Wendy, he also picked up the phone to call her sister. Those calls are a little nerve-wracking, the detective admit, because he knows them bringing a wave of mixed emotion to the victim relatives. All at once, it was just a hurricane hitting them, he said. Trinitra was eating brunch with her husband when she got the call. She didn't answer at first, assuming it was a telemarket, and let the call go to voicemail. When she listened to the message, she said she immediately felt sick. "We found who killed your sister," Bernstein said. Earlier this month, Teresa and her husband, Tom, drove to LAPD's Glass headquarters in downtown LA to meet the investigator for the first time. A necklace that once belonged to her sister hung around her neck. Teresa sat quickly and her hands folded and her eyes wide as the investigator patiently answered her question. At 40 years, it was the oldest cold case they had solved, they told her. When Bankston walked through Richardson's criminal history, Teresa shocked her head. "Are you okay?" her husband asked, rubbing her back. "Unbelievable," she said. Benson turned to two cardboard boxes that held items police found in Halison's car. School papers, some letters, her driver license. One box still had the original evidence tag detectives file out of in 1968. The paper used in the wrapped her belongings was discarded and inside. "I wish there were so many ways I could thank you," Turner said. "It just means so much." When the hour-long meeting ended, the investigators helped carry the box to the couple SUV, where they chatted in a few minutes more. "The LAPD did this job, and case is closed," Torino's husband told the detective, "but the case will never really be closed because he will never forget Wendy." And that is the sad story of Wendy Jo Halison, beautiful girl who has so much ahead of her, and for this man who didn't know her, who shouldn't have even ever been out of prison. He should have been in prison. He should have. It just breaks my heart. But I'm so glad her family got the answers they needed. And like the detective said, sometimes it's not closure. It just hurts, And I don't think anybody could understand what these families go through, because you solve the case, you know who killed your loved one, but it's not going to change the fact that they're not here and they're not going to come back. So these cases are just so sad to me, but also it's so